How long can this run of form at Spurs go on for? Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. Today's video is going to centre once again around Tottenham Hotspur and their head coach Ange Postecoglou in the aftermath of yet another defeat yesterday, this time at the hands of Leicester in the Premier League. Spurs slumped at home again to yet another defeat in what is becoming a very familiar story for Spurs and Ange Postecoglou. To paraphrase a reporter that interviewed Postecoglou last week, how long can this run of form go on for? We're going to be talking about Spurs and Tottenham, Spurs and Ange Postecoglou in this video. But before we go any further and discussing all of that and much more, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you are new. Both things are always and forever be greatly appreciated. Get involved in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it when it comes to Ange Postecoglou and Spurs in this type of scenario. Are you Ange in? Are you Ange out? Let me know down below. Use and abuse that comment section, people, and talk to me on this very intriguing and very interesting topic of debate. Sound good? Great. Nice one. Right, let's get into the video. Let's talk Ange Postecoglou. Let's talk Tottenham and everything else in between. Look, yesterday was another embarrassing, another humiliating defeat as far as what Spurs are concerned. Leicester City, fellow relegation candidates it seems right now in the reality of the situation, hadn't won a game since the beginning of December where they beat West Ham. And then along come Tottenham, who are a charity case right now, as we'll get onto a little bit more later, and they hand Leicester a victory. Spurs even went 1-0 up for Richarlison in the first half, but a quick-fire double in the second half from Leicester's Jamie Vardy and El Khanous won the game for the Foxes, who gave Ange Postecoglou's men a very rude awakening as far as what Van Nistelrooy and Leicester are concerned. But it's a big 3 points for Leicester. They climb out the relegation zone. It was a massive day for Leicester and for Ruud Van Nistelrooy. But the question that I have to ask everybody in this is there anybody out there that is still Ange in? Because I quite like the guy in certain aspects, but even if I was his biggest fan, his biggest admirer, I would be struggling to defend this right now. I really, really would. And I'm a Liverpool fan. I don't really care for Spurs. I don't really care for Tottenham and Postecoglou that much, but at the same time, Spurs are a part of football, and I want to talk about football, and this is obviously why I've made a number of videos on this, so go and check them out if you haven't already, because I 100% get it. I 100% get that this is a problem that goes beyond Ange Postecoglou. This goes to the common factor of why previous managers have failed. This goes to the likes of Daniel Levy and the people in power at Spurs. 100% guarantee that, 100% understand that. This also goes to the player aspect of things as well. The coaches, the backroom staff, everybody at Spurs. The club is rotten to the core. I 100% get that. But there is only a matter of time before those excuses start to run thin. And you have to look at the manager in these types of situations. And right now, I am looking at the manager. I can look at Daniel Levy as much as I want. But at the same time, I know nothing is going to change there. So what has to change? The manager, because Spurs have to then look at their own identity and go, right, who are we? What are we? Do we fit the manager? Does the manager fit us? That kind of thing. And when you start looking at that kind of bigger picture, you start to realise why Postecoglou is doomed to fail at this club. Look at the bigger picture, people. I broke it down into like 4 reasons. Number 1, the win percentage, which is dwindling by the game. I believe it is less than 30% since the end of November 2023. And at that time, obviously Spurs had gone on a mad run at that time. Postecoglou had come in, he really hit the ground running. But then after the end of November of 2023, the Premier League clubs seemingly all clubbed together, drew up a blueprint on how to beat Spurs, and Spurs have not managed to beat that blueprint ever since. They've not managed to rip it up and say, we're actually better than that, try and find a new blueprint to beat us. That is seemingly what has happened since that day, and that's why their win percentage has been yo-yoing and inconsistent and, you know, somewhat dwindling since the beginning of Ange Postecoglou's reign as manager. Next point, injuries. They have become a very frequent occurrence at that club. Now, some of it is down to bad luck. Some of it is down to freak accidents. That I can obviously sympathise with. And obviously, all clubs go through those kinds of things. But 17 hamstring injuries. I think I remember reading it last time someone said that. I believe it is 17 hamstring injuries since Ange Postecoglou took over. That is ridiculous. That's more than any other club in that kind of 18-month span that he's been in charge of the club for. That is absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. And when you look at the way that obviously he plays with the intensity, and obviously that intensity will have to be taught somewhere, so then you look at maybe the intensity on the training pitch, all of that will take its toll on the players eventually. And when that happens, you are going to get injuries. So I believe it is mismanagement, because right now there are a ton of injuries, and those medical staff at Tottenham must be working triple, quadruple overtime to try and get those players back on the pitch in some capacity. Because I can sympathise to an extent, but there is a fine line eventually that runs thin. It's a fine line that eventually runs thin with the injury debate. Because even so, with the amount of injuries that they have, this squad that Spurs have, the ones that are available, the ones that are coming and going like a revolving door of that medical room, they still should be enough to be better than where they currently are. They are 15th in the table. They have got a record of 7 wins, 3 draws, 13 losses from their opening 23 games. 24 points they currently sit on, 8 points clear of the drop zone. West Ham and Man United in particular are above them, and they've had shocking seasons by their standards, and have even changed their managers during those times. This Spurs side are better than 15th, even with the injuries. That's where the excuse runs thin for me. They should be good enough, by the way, to beat the likes of Crystal Palace. They should be good enough to beat the likes of Ipswich Town, beat Brighton whilst being 2 goals up, and of course yesterday beat Leicester. But they didn't. They handed the likes of Ipswich and Crystal Palace their first victories of the season. They bottled a 2-goal lead to Brighton and lost 3-2. They lost another lead at the hands of Leicester, all relegation candidates in their own way this season. And they all managed to beat Spurs. And even on a few of them games, they actually had a much more strengthened squad. They had the likes of Van der Ven and Romero back with them. Tottenham have become a charity case this season. You need a good performance, you need a goal, you need a win to install that feel-good factor back into your club. Just pray and hope that you have Spurs soon, because Spurs will give you whatever the hell you need in order to reinstall that feel-good factor back into your club. Those teams that I mentioned earlier will tell you that for a Rafa Benitez fact. It is absolutely ridiculous in my personal opinion. But the reason it's not good enough is, and it kind of ties into my next point, it's because he's stubborn. He's stubborn in terms of his tactical approach. He's stubborn in terms of his personnel approach. This manager is stubborn. Stubborn as hell when it comes to those kinds of things, because he's not changing, he's not adapting, he's got very little fluidity in the way that he approaches games. He may, for about 20 or so minutes of a game, or a game here and there, change his tactics, but then the next game, no matter who the opponent is, it's revert back to type, revert back to what we were doing before. Because right now, I am looking at a Spurs squad that is poorly constructed from top to bottom. This is a Spurs squad that, in my opinion, has a very good starting 11 when everybody is fit, but the depth is extremely thin. Thin in terms of inexperience, thin in terms of quality and calibre of player as well. And I'm seeing a Spurs side that when they have to put a lot of their second string team in, they aren't good enough. They aren't good enough to carry out the philosophy and ideology of Ange Postecoglou. They're not good enough to carry out his tactics. They are a very poor run club in terms of that aspect. They are a very poorly constructed club. Look at Spurs' last win. Spurs' last win came on the 15th of December 2024 against Southampton. Rock bottom Southampton. They have picked up one win in their last 11 games. That is relegation form. That is relegation fodder. And yes, you can beat rock bottom Southampton. Southampton, in my opinion, are gone. They are done. They are finished in this league. There is no way, in my opinion, that they are performing a great escape and managing to keep their heads above water to remain a Premier League club for next season. But even so, do you expect them to beat Southampton? Do you expect them to beat Leicester? You expect them to beat Crystal Palace? You expect them to, beat Brighton whilst being 2-0 up? But they didn't. And there's probably more examples of that throughout the season. So, beat Wolves, they didn't. This squad is poorly constructed. And again, the injury excuse runs thin after a while. Because when he does have options, he doesn't necessarily use them. I feel sorry for the likes of Dejan Kulusevski. He's easily been Tottenham's best player of the season so far. But he keeps playing week in, week out because they have no choice but to play him. Pedro Porro's another one. He's probably been the more consistent figure in that back line for Spurs all season. Another 90 minutes or so. And you do worry that eventually they will drop as well. You do worry that his management of the squad, his stubbornness in terms of personnel and in terms of tactics will get this squad really down to its bare bones. Really down to its bare bones. And another thing as to why the injury kind of situation and the excuse of that doesn't exactly run well with me anymore. I can sympathise with it enough, but when I see Bournemouth have like 8, 9 or 10 injuries or whatever the hell it is that the Cherries have currently got, and they're flying high right now. They are on a 12-game unbeaten run. They are on the verge of breaking into the top 6. I have very little sympathy for Ange Postecoglou, and it puts him to shame, in all honesty, that Andoni Iraola is doing such an incredible job with Bournemouth, who I would say have, on paper, a worse squad than Spurs, even when you consider all of the injuries that both sides have. I would still say that Andoni Iraola is doing a superb job in comparison to Ange Postecoglou. Yes, Bournemouth's injuries may not be as big a names as what Spurs' are. They may not be all first-teamers like the majority of what Spurs' are. But at the same time, Bournemouth still got a relatively young squad and, in my opinion, a lesser squad than what Spurs have, with all due respect. But Andoni Iraola is coaching his backside off in order to get them to compete. Where's Postecoglou's excuse there? Where is his excuse? It completely eradicates that excuse, in my personal opinion. And it's not just Bournemouth either. But Spurs have, in my opinion, a better squad, even with injuries, all things considered, than what Brentford have, than what Crystal Palace have, than what Fulham have, than what West Ham have. And yet they are all above Spurs right now. So where are the excuses now for this manager? Because it all links together. And it brings my final point, which is the relegation battle. The potential relegation battle that may be on the cards for this season. This squad was not built for a relegation battle. This side was set to challenge for European places, challenge for Champions League football for the following season. That's where this squad was expected to be. But like I said before, one win in their last 11, one win in their last 7, I believe, in actual honesty. And with the likes of Brentford, Manchester United, Ipswich, Manchester City, Bournemouth, Fulham, Chelsea, all on the horizon for opponents between now and the beginning of April. This is incredible what Spurs are going through right now. This is an incredible campaign that we are witnessing right now in terms of the Premier League itself, but in terms of Tottenham specifically, this is incredible. I mean, Antonio Conte and Jose Mourinho both got sacked for less, and yet I feel like this head coach is getting protected by the media because they're not going in on him enough. Not unless to the extent that they were going in on him, going in on Mourinho and Conte when they were at the club. This guy is, for whatever reason, being protected. You can make your own comments as to why that may be, but it's just absolutely incredible. Look, there's no doubt in my mind, in my opinion, that I believe on some level he is actually a decent manager. But he requires a very specific set of players. He requires a very specific squad. Similarly to what Conte and Mourinho wanted, but didn't get. So what makes you think that Postecoglou is going to get it? So then it boils down to the question of, does Ange change who he is? Does he change his entire approach to this whole project that Spurs are going through? Or does he change his approach? Or does he continue doing what he is doing at Spurs and just hope for the best? Because there is a definition to insanity, and that is doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. And that is exactly what Postecoglou is seemingly going through right now. He's doing the same things over and over again, hoping for a different result, and it's just not working. It seems to be a case of square pegs and round holes, in my opinion. The squad doesn't seem fit and built for Postecoglou, and Postecoglou doesn't seem fit and built to implement his tactics and style on the squad that Spurs currently have. Square pegs and round holes, which I alluded to a little earlier when I was talking about the Spurs squad. Either way, I doubt it will work. Even if Ange decides to change, I doubt it will probably work, because I see him being so stubborn that he won't change. I see him being so stubborn that he will not change his approach. And if he continues to go down this route, Tottenham will be relegated. It may seem harsh, it may seem like it won't happen. And to be fair, Spurs obviously have the squad to obviously get away from relegation and not have that become a reality. But at the same time, if he doesn't buck up his ideas soon, and if he doesn't change anything, because he's not even tried to change anything, it seems, or at least not on a consistent level, Spurs could actually find themselves relegated for this season. It could genuinely be a possibility. So what is the solution? The solution is either Ange changes or Spurs bring in a different manager. If you're not going to back Postecoglou in this transfer window, you've only given him a goalkeeper so far, and we are 27 days into a transfer window in which you know the squad is wearing thin, you know the injuries are piling up. If you're not going to back him, then find a manager that is going to absolutely be a better coach for the players that you currently have at your disposal, because there's no way that this guy is getting a tune out of the players that he currently has right now. And a better coach, a better manager would do that. Someone who is more flexible, someone who is more adapted to the current situation at the club, and someone who will actually be working better under the restrictions that the club puts on this, that the club puts on the club itself. Because, like I say, there's no doubt in my mind he is a decent enough manager, but he requires a specific set of players. So why are you not giving them players and expecting him to do well? To borrow a kind of Expression said it best basically in his review yesterday. You're expecting a 5-star Michelin star chef to create 5-star gourmet food with the most basic level of ingredients. It's just not going to work. Postecoglou is not going to work wonders with a basic squad. And a basic squad isn't going to do what he wants it to do. So therefore, Get a new manager who's going to work better under the restrictions that you're putting on the club. A better manager who is going to coach better with the players that you currently have at your disposal. Get a tune out of those players. And maybe, just maybe then, you can deliver a clear message to the fans on who Tottenham are, what Tottenham are, and the direction that the club are going in. Because right now, it seems that Tottenham and the fans are all lost at sea. And I think Spurs fans will be a lot happier if the club were more crystal clear on those kinds of identification of the club being addressed to the fans. Look, for me, I think the writing's on the wall. I think Postecoglou is done at Spurs, in all honesty. When that will be, I don't know. I don't know how long Spurs and the fans can continue with this. Like I say, I would love to know if there is anybody still Ange in out there. But for me, I'm looking at the week of the domestic cups as being potentially the final week of Ange Postecoglou. Look, they are still in the Europa League. They are still in the FA Cup. They're still in the Carabao Cup. Anything, of course, can happen in a cup competition. But I believe if they get knocked out in the Carabao Cup to Liverpool in the second leg, and then a few days later get knocked out by Aston Villa in the FA Cup, that could genuinely be curtains for Ange Postecoglou in all honesty, in my personal opinion. If Liverpool don't hammer the final nail into Ange Postecoglou's coffin, I believe that Aston Villa possibly will. Look, those are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of everything that I've talked about in this video when it comes to Ange Postecoglou and Tottenham? Let me know what you guys are thinking and feeling. Your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it. We'll make for great interest in reading, I'm sure, down below in that comment section. So please do get involved down there. Would love to hear from you all. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new or want to see more content like this. Both things always and forever be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. Thank you all for your either brand new or continued support to the channel. Whichever one it is, thank you all so much, guys. You guys are awesome. Thank you for supporting the channel and myself. It will always be appreciated and never taken for granted. So thank you all so much for that. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video. I'll see you and speak to you all again soon in another video or live stream or whatever it may be. Cheers, guys. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Speak to you all again very, very soon.